to welcome Mr. Andre Norman to our show. His topic today is going from the prison yard to the Harvard yard, how to find motivation, inspiration, and dedication through crisis. He has an amazing story. I had the opportunity of listening to Andre's story at a mastermind. I can't remember if it was in Laguna Beach or Newport Beach.
Beach.
Was it Newport Beach?
Yes.
Amazing story. Just everybody in the audience was glued to his topic there. Then I had the opportunity of hearing Andre on a podcast episode with Michael Burnoff, and he went even deeper into his story and just a really amazing background. Well, shoot, I'll open it up for you and let you tell more about your story.
Okay.
Thank you for being on with us.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate the invitation.
Yes, sir.
Born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. And of course, was a Patriot fan. We're still Patriot fans, even though Thomas left us.
Sorry to hear that. We're Falcon fans.
Oh, no. You're not fans. You're tortured souls.
You can say that again.
Yes, but it's kind of classic. Two mom, dad don't get along. They fight a lot. It's never a fair fight. Go through that. Go through busing. I grew up in the era of busing where black kids went to school with white kids. We got rocks thrown at us. Went through that scenario. They went through my dad leaving. Probably about the first, second grade, he moves out. Single mom, 6 kids, living in the inner city. It's tough. I'm second youngest. Public school, it's not the best, not the most structure, the most stuff in there. So I fall through the cracks. I end up in what they call the dummy class for the kids who couldn't read and write. And it was just okay. It was just one of those things. It's just another one on the route to prison. I didn't know when I was in the first grade, there was like a room full of people who already knew I was going to prison. Nobody told me. But they knew because I couldn't read and write and count at a certain level, really at all, by the second grade that I was forecasted to go to prison. So I'm on this journey that I don't know of, but I'm on it. 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, middle school, kids are horrible. Kids, I don't know about your neighborhood. Kids in my neighborhood are really mean. If you were poor, didn't have the cool stuff, didn't fit in, I wasn't a big guy, wasn't athletic, wasn't hip. So I didn't have any of the stuff to make me cool. So I started selling drugs to buy the stuff to be cool. That was just to show my mom couldn't afford it. My dad wasn't around. And I couldn't take the cruelty of these 6th graders. It was just vicious. It was either quit school or sell drugs. Those are the options. So I sold drugs. I got money. I bought stuff for myself. I could take care of myself. But I'm still learning the wrong things, going the wrong way, no real parental guidance. I make it to high school, and everything just falls apart. My favorite sister had gone off to college, and she was the one that I listened to. She was the one that kept me in line. When she left, all bets was off. So I spent the next 4 years just getting in trouble. Small weed dealing turned into gun carrying, turned into robberies. It just escalates. So I find myself sitting in prison one day. And I'm sitting in the maximum security prison, 18 years old. I'm scared to death, don't know what I'm going to do. And I walk into the prison unit, and I'm thinking that I'm going to get tortured, I'm going to get hung, I'm going to get stabbed, all this bad stuff. It was really a reunion of all my friends from the dummy class. It was of all my friends from juvenile probation, all my friends who used to be in the principal's office, all my friends I used to chase and fight against downtown at the movie theaters. It was like a big giant reunion of all my friends, all the guys I knew. And the sole thing, the lesson I want to share, it's not criminals who go to jail. That's not goes to jail. There's thousands of criminals in this country who never step foot in jail. Criminals don't go to jail. Quitters go to jail. If you quit on football, you quit on choir, you quit on track, you quit on your mentors, you quit on yourself, you quit on your parents, then it puts you in a situation where jail becomes the next logical step. I went to jail not just for criminal acts. My main reason for going to jail is I quit on all the people who try to believe in me.
Wow. And that's one thing that, it's tough being a parent, and, that we instill in our kids just to not be a quitter and to, because quitting is a habit. Winning is a habit as well, and quitting is a habit. So what's some things that you do to, so that's probably one of your biggest life lessons that you learned, is not to be a quitter.
Can't quit.
Yeah.
Quitting is not optional. You might not succeed. You might not win. It might not go your way. It might end up badly, but you cannot quit. Knowing when to cut bait and let it go is different than quitting. See, quitting is when you just walk away because you're emotionally unstable enough to complete it. So I quit band, not because I couldn't make the band, not because I wasn't good at my trumpet. I just got emotionally overwhelmed in other areas and I walked away. I quit track, not because I wasn't fast. I didn't have the cool track outfit. I didn't have the cool sneakers. I didn't want to train hard. So I got embarrassed in a race. So I got the right to quit. It wasn't that I couldn't run. I didn't want to train hard enough. So when I got embarrassed, I walked away. So quitting is not, well, okay, I got this project. I put $1.5 million into it. It's not, Corona just came. The world shut down. I can dump another $3 million into it and hope that no, it's time to cut bait. That's not quitting. That's a logical business move. Quitting is when it's emotional. When you attach emotions, that's quitting. So,
what was the lure for you? So you're speaking of going from quitting band and sports. What was the lure to you for seeing the drug dealers and the gang members that attracted you to that?
I wasn't attracted to the gang life. I wasn't even attracted to the drug dealer life. I was just horrified of being teased and made fun of by sixth graders. I didn't want to be a gang member or a drug dealer. I just didn't want to be teased. My driving force was, I need a members only jacket. I need Calvin Klein jeans. Yeah, you.
I wish I still had one. I'd be the last member.
Good one. But I wanted to be able to buy my own lunch. I was a free lunch kid. I cannot explain how embarrassing and shameful it is when you're sitting in a classroom full of kids that you don't know. They're already giving you a hard time for being poor and not having the cool stuff. And the teacher says, who needs a free lunch form? And she holds it up. I don't know what it is. And she looks at her list and says, Norman, you need a free lunch form. You're poor. Get up here, fill this out. And she makes me get up in front of the whole class, come to the front, get this form, take it home, have my mother fill it out, and bring it back.
Wow.
That's humiliating. Now, not only am I not cool, I don't have cool clothes. Now I'm the free lunch kid. And the lady would yell at me every day until I brought the form back. And she was just as bad as the kids.
Do you think she did it? Do you think it was an intentional, or do you think that she just didn't know what she didn't know? And do you think that still happens today with teachers?
It happens, I'm sure. I'm not going to say she intentionally did it. Maybe that's just her way of communicating. Some people will tell you I'm aggressive, and I am. I'm not being, if you don't know me, I always seem aggressive and abrasive until I'm your teammate. They're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
So Michael Jordan was driven when he was your teammate. He was hell on wheels when you played against him. So
he always wanted to know, hey, who can I slam dunk on? Whenever he went to a new city, who am I going to dunk on tonight?
So you went from being the guy getting dunked on, or you're the guy that gives him the ball. It's a totally different picture. When you're the guy throwing him the ball, he's great. When you're on the other team, he's not so great. So I don't think the teacher was anything against me. That might have just been her personality.
What were some of the lessons that you maybe learned from the street that you still utilize today?
The street tells me pay attention 24 hours, 7 days a week, second to second, not minute to minute, deal to deal, call to call. In the street, you pay attention second to second. All it takes is 0.2 seconds for someone to pull up and light off and shoot off a gun. And if you're not paying attention, you're the guy that gets hit. When the police come to raid the park, if you're so busy being distracted, that extra 3 seconds head start, you're the one they're going to chase instead of the guy next to you, because you're the closest one to the car. When they come screeching to the park, 7, 8 cars deep. They all jump out. It's called the jump out boys. The first one that sees the cars coming, he's gone. He's gone. By the time they stop, half the crowd is gone. The half that was moving slow, they don't want to get chased down.
So don't move slow in your business.
Don't move slow. Pay attention at all time. Calamity can happen at all time. Death can happen at all time. Whether it's here comes the cops to lock you up. Here comes the addicts who want to steal your drugs and run off. Here comes the stick-up boys who want to rob you and take all your stuff and might kill you. And then worse than that, here comes a relative who's going to tell your mother in the park selling drugs. So I'm avoiding 4 people.
Is your mom still living now? If you don't mind.
My mom and my dad are still living, yes.
That's awesome. I imagine that they are so proud of what you've done and accomplished in your life.
My mother just read my book, and I was holding my breath. I am my mother reborn. If you've never met my mother, you just did. If you got my mother on this call right now, and you started talking to her, I guarantee you, she will say some of the exact things I've already said.
That's awesome.
We are one and the same.
What did she say about the book, and what's the name of the book?
The book is called The Ambassador of Hope, Turning Poverty and Prison into a Purpose-Driven Life. My mom, she said she read it twice and she's okay. My mom is super direct.
Were there some things she found out in that book that she didn't know about you?
Not really.
Not really?
No. I'm her. So anything she's reading, even if she didn't know it specifically, she knows me.
Love it. Love it. So
how mom gave me the thumbs up.
How were you able to take your story and help out people now? And who do you help out?
Well, I literally this morning, I'm going to tell the truth. I work at a prison about 2 minutes from my house. So I was walking into prison and my assistant.
A lot better working there than being there, huh?
A lot better.
Yeah.
So she called me and said, Andre, you got a call at 11 o'clock. I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, you got 11 o'clock call. So I was like, okay. And she called me at 10:50 to make sure I was out of the prison. But I right now, in this country, I worked in a lot of places. I worked in Ferguson, Missouri when they had riots. I worked in Honduras when they had cartels killing people. I worked in St. Louis when they had schools that just couldn't function. I worked in West Africa when they had child soldiers in the street. I worked in Scottsdale, Arizona when they had kids on drugs and their parents didn't know how to help. I do crisis management. I work with London Business School, Harvard Law School, and go down the list. 2 years ago in South Carolina, there was a riot and 7 men were murdered at one time and 30 others injured. It was the worst riot in 25 years. In corrections, not just South Carolina. So I was called and asked to come and help with the violence. I've been here for 10 months. I run my own unit. The director said, Andre, I need these men to get along. I need these men not to kill each other. I need these men not to attack my staff. And that's exactly what's happening. We've been open for 10 months. We haven't had one fight.
Wow.
In 10 months. We have the top gang leaders, the top influencers, the top religious folks, all in one unit, not one fight.
So what changed?
What changed is my God is bigger than their demons, one.
Yes, sir.
And the second thing is I challenged them. I used to be a gang boss. I used to be locked in a locked facility. I've lived their life and I've made it out. So I am the example of what you can be if you want to focus. If I walk onto a basketball court to a high school and say, hey, y'all can be in the NBA, they can be like, whatever, you've never been. If Michael Jordan walks on the court, it's all theirs.
And one thing, and it just came to me this morning because I was thinking about you being on, and it just popped into my mind that it's Good Friday, and the story of Paul popped into my mind of, are you aware of the story of Paul? And
what part of the story do you want to go to?
Basically, the entire story of, and you probably remember and know the story better than I do. It sounds like that you do. But Paul was a murderer, right?
That's that check.
But then God used his story, as an amazing story. And I'll go ahead. I want to tell a story really quick of, I was going through some very tough times personally myself back in 2003, and I went to the church and I went to the pastor, of the church, and he ended up giving me to another one of his junior pastors. And this gentleman, he basically was from Chicago, and talking about a drug dealer, he got busted with something like 13 to 15 kilos of cocaine.
That's a drug dealer.
His house was bombed. All kind of crazy stuff happened to him. And I was just going through some bad relationship stuff. It wasn't anything that crazy. But that gentleman's story was, one that could relate and help and serve other people that, it's hard for a pastor that hasn't led that type of life to relate with someone, that is on the streets and that's selling drugs and, in a gang or whatnot. But this gentleman, just like you, he has a story to relate to folks that can help people, get past and get out of, those areas in life. So that's where it brought back to the story of Paul to me was that Paul went through all that he went to, and God used his testimony to help others. What's your take on that?
My take on it, the story of Saul converting to Paul is a great story. We're going to go before Paul. We're going to back him up to when he's Saul. We're going to make him Saul, still the murderer of Christians. And that's what his job was, and that's what he did. There's a gentleman named Stephen who was a believer. Stephen was captured, put in a pit, and he was being stoned to death. And as Stephen is being stoned to death, Saul, the murderer, is on top of the hill watching. And he says the famous quote, or this famous line, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Saul's like, who is this man praying to? When I'm the one in charge, I decided he dies. Then he dies. On the road to Damascus, in the next chapter of Acts, Saul is now stricken by Jesus off the horse. He says, "Why are you persecuting my people?" And we know he goes to the house, Ananias goes to pray for him. We got Paul. Who wants to be Stephen to touch the heart of Saul? Are you willing to go into the pit and give your life to touch and create the next Saul to Paul? That's why I run into conflict with pastors. I'm like, you're great. Which one of you want to be Stephen? Because we need another Paul. And to get another Paul, we need another Stephen. So who wants to volunteer to be Stephen to touch the heart of the murderer who can become the greatest champion for Christ? And nobody wants to take that job. Everybody wants to be somebody else. Nobody wants to be Stephen. They'll talk and preach about Paul all day long. Love Paul. But I respect on a whole nother level the man who created him. So my job is to walk into this prison and face death at one level and say, I'm going to create the next Paul. I'm in a prison where they've had over 30, 40 murders in the last 5 years. They had 7 people murdered in a couple hours span. They had people wounded routinely. I got to walk into that pit and say, listen, forgive them, Father, not excuse their act, not excuse their bad behavior, but I have to walk. I said, I literally just gave a speech less than an hour ago. We need another Paul. And it's going to come from you. You are right now deemed Sauls. You are murderers. You are killers. You are bad people in the eyes of the world. We're going to show them how you become Paul. And that's what we're doing this morning. I told him I got to come out. I got to do this call. I'm going back to the prison in about an hour, 2 hours. We're going to do part 2 of that lesson. That's literally the lesson we had this morning. So,
wow.
And
I didn't know that.
It's true.
That's crazy. I didn't know that coming in this call. It just made me think, hey, it's Good Friday. And it just brought me back to the Bible. So first of all, we really, really, really appreciate you coming on Good Friday, Easter weekend. Thank you so much. And I think going back, Tracy, I think, one thing, Tracy and I, we have a daughter that that also is it 2 years sober, Tracy? Alcohol?
Yes.
So that's one thing that, I know Andre, helps out, teenage kids and, kids addicted to drugs, kids addicted to alcohol. Would you mind telling that story a little bit if it's okay with you, Tracy, or not? Go ahead.
I was going to say my commitment when I first turned my life around, I'm in prison. So I'm surrounded by black men. And the fact when I went to turn my life around, to the point of your story about your pastor, it was a rabbi named Natan Schaefer. He was an Orthodox Jewish rabbi who was assigned to the prison I was in. And I had a chance to meet him. Didn't even know he was a rabbi. Didn't know what a rabbi was. Didn't have him where I was from. But he was just like a cool guy. He was like the coolest guy. And he just had this air about him that made you want to talk to him. So I said, what are you doing? He said, we're studying. So I started studying with him. I was studying with him for 3 weeks before I realized it was a Jewish class. But it didn't matter. He taught me not so much the 5 books of Moses and the Torah stuff. He did some religious lessons. But then the rabbi taught me how to be respectful, how to be forgiving, how to be helpful, how to be, human. He taught me human things. It had nothing to do with him being black or me being Jewish, him being from the suburbs, me being from the city, him wearing his outfit, me wearing mine. He was just a great teacher, and he taught me. And more so than teaching me to be human, he taught me, don't question the help. Because if you ask me to write down all the people that I thought would lead me to being human, he'd have never made my list. Fast forward, I work with Joe Polish, and we're about helping people. That's what me and Joe, we're brothers in the quest and the mission of helping people.
Yes, sir.
And I'm at Genius, and I help the members, I help their relatives, I help what I want. That's why I met Roland. You know, saying my brother Roland. And there was a family, I'm doing interventions, and there was a dad that I was referred to whose son was struggling. I called the father. I said, listen, I'm in Arizona, you're in California. I can fly there at the end of this meeting, and I can come help you find your son and get him in a treatment. The father, well-to-do businessman, great guy, super serious, been through a lot. His thing was ex-gang member, black guy from the East Coast, not a doctor, doesn't know my neighborhood, doesn't know my son, is gonna fly out to California for free, find my son for free, and convince him to go to treatment, which I haven't been able to do, the big businessman, for the last 5 years. Couldn't make it make sense. He said, well, let's do this next week. I said, no, I'm already halfway here, let me come. It's not gonna cost you nothing, I get it done, don't worry about it. He couldn't make it make sense. And he finally said, let's do it next week. I said, okay, I relented. That was on a Thursday. His son OD'd that Sunday.
Wow.
And the story is, next week may never come. And the biggest thing in that, and it's a sorry thing, is I believe he couldn't see me as the help. Why can't the help look like that? Why can't if I'd have said, I'm charging you $5,000, I need a room at the Hilton, I need a car at the airport, I fly on American, I get a window seat, first class only, buddy, he would have understood it. He'd have checked the boxes, and I probably would have been on a plane. But because this is part of my fault, I didn't speak his language. I couldn't speak in his vernacular. I was just trying to be helpful and not being thoughtful. Had I been thoughtful, I should have said, how does this man see the world? How does he communicate? Let me communicate there in terms, not that I would have charged him anything, but I still could have made a better effort to communicate in terms that he understood versus just, let me come help your son. And we both missed.
Where did this passion come from you? Is there like a pivotal point in your life that you just made a decision that, hey, I have a passion to help other people? Can you pinpoint that back to an experience? Or?
Exactly. When I had 3 lessons, I grew up in, I had 3 premises I governed my life on. The first was, it's okay to hit people. I watched my mother be beat from as early as I can remember till I was first, second grade, till my dad left. So if she can be hit, anybody can be hit.
Wow.
Second, I'm going to protect myself. When I went to school and kids threw rocks at me and called me names, say he's a nigger, because I rode the bus to a white neighborhood, nobody came to help me. I had to protect myself. So that's rule number 2. And rule number 3 is, my dad walked out of the house one day and just was gone. He didn't explain himself, didn't say nothing. So now I can quit anytime I want. I don't have to explain myself. So my 3 rules as an 8-year-old is I can hit people, protect myself, and I have to explain myself. Then as I grew and I changed my life, I became a believer, I started helping people. Now my 3 rules are, I have to help people from being hit. I have to walk people through, you know what I'm saying, and protect them. And 3, I need to explain to people, you know what I'm saying, their value. So those 3 lessons flipped into the opposite side.
Your roles changed, your principles changed.
My principles changed, my morals changed, and therefore my outcomes, my the way I view the world. When I saw the world as an 8-year-old, those are real rules. Now, as somebody who's been helped by many people from all different walks of life, from all different backgrounds, now my thing is, it's the same baseline, it's just the opposite end.
How did you rewire your thinking?
I think the same. I just go in a different direction.
Ah, that's good. I love it. What were you about to say, Tracy? Go ahead.
I was gonna this just came to my mind, and I thought I'd ask you this question. You know, you were positioned in this place at one time as well as now going back and helping people in prison, and they're stuck in these small walls all the time, kind of how we are right now in these shelters in place. You know, we're stuck in these walls. What are things that people can do to get their mind right, that it's, you know, there is this outside, we're going to get there again one day, and we're all going to be, you know, we won't have to virtual hug anymore, and we'll be able to see each other soon when this virus is gone. But to keep people's mind going, that they're not just, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to turn to alcohol and drugs, I'm sure, and get into a place of fear, get into a place if they've lost a job. You know, and how do you keep your mind right to know that, yes, there is this other side, and we're going to get there?
The first thing they want to do is, you're not alone. That's why we're having this call, and that's why we're going to keep having calls, and you're not alone. The beautiful part of 2020 is we have these. You can reach out to anybody at any time, 0.2 seconds across the world. So you're not alone, and there are communities out here that want to connect to you. So don't isolate yourself. The strong suit of prison is isolation. We take you out of the world and we isolate you from the world, and then you don't know what's going on. Don't isolate yourself. Even if you got to get on a chat group about knitting, don't isolate yourself. Don't look for the perfect chat group. Just get into something. Is that a Roll Tide? That's Atlanta.
Oh. Atlanta.
We don't roll tide.
ATL, baby.
Yeah,
we don't roll tide here.
No, I ain't gonna talk about the Georgia Bulldogs. My niece will get mad. But definitely don't isolate yourself. Go online. There's 1,000 YouTube videos. There's all kinds of social media might be the devil, but right now it's a savior. You know what I'm saying? So definitely don't isolate yourself. Second, not to go against the social media and platform we have, I've written probably like 60 handwritten letters in the last week.
Wow.
Hand cramps up, which is a good thing because it tells me I'm alive. But get out your notebook and write people letters.
Love it.
Most post offices are open. They got plastic all up. The post office is open. So it's an essential place.
And they still coming by your house right now too.
Yeah.
They'll pick it up right out of your mailbox.
This is the biggest, not the number one part of the day is at prison. The whole prison revolves around mail call. Mail call is when the time the world says you exist. Somebody in Iowa or Florida or Texas sends you a letter, it says you exist. So that's why I set out, all of my letters I wrote went to prisoners. And I mailed out a bunch of books. So between the books and the prisoners, I wrote probably like 70, 80 letters. And they get it, they're like, wow, go back to writing. It does great for you to share yourself and express yourself. It's different when you type. Don't type, write. I'm saying, even if it turns into 3 letters versus 10 typed, 3 written, go to 3 written. Because it makes you think, and it makes you go deep, and it makes you reflect. And the last thing is, it was isolate, write letters. And what was the third thing? Third thing is, what was it? Oh, reach out to somebody in your family. Reach out to the people that you've had conflict with. And mend those. Mend those. This is a great time to fix beefs or fix misunderstandings from before. I've reached out, I've talked to my brother more than I've talked to him in the last 5 years, in the last week. I've talked to my sister more than I have in the last week than I have in the last year. I'm saying I have other friends that I was able, if somebody's been damaging and out of control and violent, I'm not saying fix those. But me and my brother don't have beef. We just grew apart. Me and my sister grew apart. So I've talked to my dad more this week than I have in the last 2 months. Because no, we just grew apart. Or we just didn't make time. We make reasons not to. Then the cool thing is, aside from all this, there's a new world coming. There's a new world order. When they came out with Uber, nobody told the taxi drivers your business is going away. But it did. For every action, there's a reaction. So for every business lost, there's new businesses coming. And right now, when Ford came out with his Model T, the guy that sold horses and buggies was kind of upset. And if you would have walked by a horse and buggy shop and saw the carrots on sale 50% off, you'd have thought you had a deal.
That's funny. I seen a quote the other day about that Henry Ford made, and it said that, and it was relating with his clients. And there are times, when you're taking your avatar of who you're targeting and, fulfilling, a differentiated product that serves the client. And he said that, early on, if he went to people, his customers, guess what they would want? They would want more horses.
Faster horses.
They would want faster horses because they didn't know about a car. So, I agree with you 100% that, right now is when we could be in the shortest recession ever. We had Roland Frazier on last week, and, and of course I love Roland. He's one of the most brilliant geniuses in the business minds in the world today. But he said that we could be in the shortest recession ever. And that's when some of the greatest American companies through the years were started is, through economic downturns, not when
right.
things are going great. I did want to add one other thing on to, what Tracy spoke about with isolation and us being quarantined and feeling like we're in jail, and going back to, the circle of influence with Burnoff last Friday, we really are not in a prison cell.
No. I just left one. You're not. I just left prison. You're not in prison.
We're not in
solitary. You're not in prison. Trust me. You're not in prison.
You are not in prison right now. We're not in solitary confinement. We aren't in prison. Hey, in Atlanta today, it's a beautiful day. Just because there is a stay-in-place order, we're not even quarantined. We're not truly, unless we've been sick and we're told to stay in our house. And even, if we have to stay in our house, that doesn't mean we can't go outside and get some vitamin D out there
all day
with some sunshine. So, I just think that's really important for us to differentiate that we aren't on lockdown in prison. Because I think there are, prisoners right now. I think they are on a true lockdown where they can't leave their cells at all. I could be wrong on that. I don't know.
Some are, some aren't. Depends on the state, depends on the scenario. And when you speak about Roland, genius. He's like just smart on a whole nother level.
Yes, sir.
And you have access to him. You have access. War Room has a whole litany of videos that you can just sit here and watch.
Yes.
I went to War Room. They had Jason Fladlin, they had Jim Duell, they had Tucker Max. Michael Burnoff. They were all on stage, and they filmed that stuff. And I'm sure if you're a member, it's in their membership page. You go to that. I have to say to myself, there were like 15 awesome. Jay Abraham was in the building. Stop it. Yeah. I took a picture with Jay. I don't take pictures often.
Yeah, we're on a phone call with Tracy, and I have a phone call with Jay at 3:00 today.
So you have all these people online with information and knowledge. If you stop worrying about what you lost and start worrying about what you're going to gain, then it changes. If you're by yourself and you're going over a situation, you're obsessing, you're stressing. If I put two people in a room, it turns into solution mode. How do we solve this? If it's just you, it's woe is me. Two people is how do we fix this? So get into a room of how do we fix this and how do we make this and how do we build this? And we're talking about entrepreneurs. Once you get past this hurts, now let's get to what I do best. I create businesses. And they're on this call. And you might need Paul Allen for Bill Gates. You might need that other person to make your thing click. What Paul Allen said in his dorm minding his business. Bill knocks on the door, says, "I have a great idea," and lo and behold, here's Microsoft. You might be Paul Allen.
Mark Cuban said he said last week on a show I was listening to that we'll look back 8 to 10 years from now. We'll look back to this time with coronavirus, and we'll be amazed at the amount of businesses that were started right now through innovation because we had to. And that's the two biggest functions of any business is marketing and innovation.
Right.
I think that's where really Tracy and I, it's been and yes, there are deaths going on, which is horrible going on in the world right now. But from a business standpoint, we've been able to go, back in the last 8 years, approximately over $500,000 spent in professional development, and I'm a massive note taker because I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed sometimes on retaining information, but it's been awesome to go back into those notes and execute and implement things. So it's really been, I'm developing a product right now, a product within a product that I've had on the back burners for a little while. And I was joking with our team, and I said it's been on the back burner for 8 years.
Yes, 8.
Just 8 years. That's it. And yesterday I was able to knock out about 50% of that project in about 3 hours. Then I'll have the rest of it knocked out probably by tomorrow. That's just one product, not to mention all the other things that we've had the opportunity to work on now that we wouldn't have had that opportunity if we weren't able to slow our roll a little bit right now,
Right. And the other thing is, people have different belief systems and different faiths. So I'm not sure what you believe in or who you believe in, but whoever your higher power is, they're speaking to you right now.
Yes, sir.
So whoever you listen to, whoever you aspire to, you study from, you get to your motivation through, or your drive, they're speaking to you. And they're saying, "Hey, Jason, hey, Tracy, hey, Andre, hey, Cara, hey, Melissa, hey, Kevin," they're calling you and saying, "Pay attention to me. Pay attention to me." And there's a lesson in there somewhere.
Yes, sir.
There's a lesson in there somewhere. People dying from diabetes is as bad as people dying from corona, is dying from drug addiction, is dying from suicide. People dying is bad. But the truth is, in this world, every day, people pass. Every day. And we just got to the point where okay, that's just part of the day. Now, corona's making us say, wait a minute. People are dying. And people have been dying. But now we're paying attention. We go back to terrorism, for the lack of a better term. Americans didn't care about terrorism until 9/11. Didn't exist to us. So we can go back to the Olympics. We can go back to the Olympics in, I think it was Germany. We can go back to all these different places and spaces where there's been terrorist acts for years, for decades. Didn't bother us. Until 9/11, we didn't even think terrorism existed because it didn't for us. That made it real for us. This is your time to say, what should I be working? Go talk to your higher power and ask for direction. Don't ask Andre. Don't ask Johnny. Ask your higher power. What am I supposed to be doing right now?
Mm-hmm.
Granted, this is a time to reflect and get stuff done, but don't miss the larger lesson. There's a bigger lesson in this for you if you want to get past oh my God, the world is coming to an end. Well, if you believe the world is coming to an end, that's an even more reason to get in touch with your higher power.
What's your biggest lesson through all this that stands out to you?
That I've been allowing myself to be too busy for no reason.
Yes. And we have someone on here that has a question. Melissa, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi there, Andre.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. So I have a sister, and she has 6 kids, 5 boys, 1 girl. And nobody knows this about me, but this morning at 4 a.m. we picked up my nephew from state prison, my sister and I. She had to go to work. She's a frontline nurse for Grady. And I had a little bit of time with my nephew this morning, and I I just wanted to know from you, I know we're going to go visit probation on Monday, and they have a job lined up for him. He's 22 years old. He did some gang banging when he was in his teenage years, and so he served his time. I just want to know from you what I can say to him to motivate him that he needs to grow up, and it's adult time now, and he needs to get a job and get on the right path. So it's just,
Okay.
What can I do with him?
Okay, first thing you're gonna do with him is focus on yourself. Understand you're emotional. We can hear your emotions coming through as you speak about it. The parts that you wanna put to the side that nobody knows, so it's kind of like a family secret. The parts that you want him to do better. The parts that you're like angry that he's not applying himself. So you have emotional attachment to this scenario. And when you speak to him, you can't separate that out. He's gonna get the lesson along with the emotion. And what usually happens is the emotion overrides the lesson and he gets stuck there. He gets sidetracked in the emotion of it, and he doesn't take the lesson of you need a job because it's going to help you take care of your family, take care of yourself. You need to do X because it's going to get you Y. When the emotional part comes in, is what throws him and makes it harder for you. So the easiest thing I can do is say for you is let's me and you set up a Zoom call later and I'll talk to him for you.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Wow.
That's easy.
Definitely
That's
the
I am the
motivation.
country's foremost expert on prison reentry. You can go from California to San Diego, from San Diego to Florida. I am deemed the country's foremost expert on prison reentry. I helped create the initial programs that launched in this country. I've created programs for the White House, for Congress, all of. I will talk to your nephew this afternoon. No charge, no
That
issue.
is
Let's set up a
awesome.
time and we'll get on and we'll talk to him.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
That's very helpful. Yeah, we've been
That's
emotional all morning. He walked out and he's already about 6'5" and his afro was about 10 feet tall. So he was definitely looking like a scary figure this morning, but he's definitely happy to be home with us.
Yeah, scary is relative, but again, understanding what he's been through, not excusing or justifying or making stories for it, understanding what he's been through, understanding where he is. He spent a gazillion years in jail. Now he comes out of jail and the world's on hold. He's waited all this time to come home to lockdown.
Mm. Wow.
So he's waited all this time to come home and be locked in the house. Not fun. So that's not cool, or that's not fun. But how did he do his time? Did he spend his time reading? Did he spend his time playing basketball? Did he spend his time lifting weights? Did he spend his time in school? All the things that he should have, could have done, or maybe did do in prison, you don't understand what it means in the today. So when I speak to him, he tells me, I just walk the track all day. Well, that doesn't mean it's a good or bad thing. I just know where your starting point is. You have to be able to identify his starting point to get him to his end objective. GPS doesn't work if you don't have a starting point. You need an ending point and a starting point. His starting point isn't your front room. His starting point was a mental mindset that he had while he was in prison. We need to identify that, then GPS him the way you want him to go.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's amazing. Thank you.
So let's give her my information, give her my number. You
Okay.
can call me after this call, or we can set it up for this for tonight. I got a 7 o'clock call, so we can either do it at 6 or we can do it at 8. 8 o'clock will probably be easy for me. 8:30, we get on, back, done deal.
That's amazing. Just testament of what you do, which reminds me of Roland. Like Roland's such a busy guy, but and he's a brilliant genius. But even more so, he's just got the heart of a giver. And you mentioned Joe Polish, and life. I think his book is, or he says something like, life gives to the giver and takes from the taker, and that's amazing. Example that you give there, sir, and you do it just from the heart to help people.
I mean, I don't want her tragedy to be that nobody wanted to help her. And what makes me say quick is I couldn't see her, but I heard my mother. My mother had 2 troublesome boys, and she asked for help, and nobody helped her. I wasn't like an out of control, over the edge kid. I just needed some guidance. I needed someone to sit me down who really understood my starting point. Everybody understands my ending point. Andre has so much potential. He's articulate. He's gifted. He's smart. He's a problem solver. He's strategic. He's well-mannered. He's likable. They spoke to my potential. Nobody spoke to my pain. Nobody spoke to my reality. They spoke to my, and your potential is not stopping your success. Your pain is stopping your success. So you have to be able to correlate the two and understand how to make a move. So I'd love to and be honored to be helpful. Friends call you when it's fun stuff. I'm saying when people call me with problems, I feel like, wow, I have value. I can actually step up and do something and make somebody's life better. And as entrepreneurs, you have a situation right now where you say, okay, it's in me. I mean, it's in me. I'm quite sure Google didn't come up with Google the first time they went to the board. Instead of writing names on the wall, they stayed in that room until they got it.
So how can entrepreneurs today find the motivation, the inspiration, and the dedication through this crisis? Because I know that you're, you spoke at Harvard. You went from a prison yard to Harvard yard, but you've also spoke at Delta, BP, Major League Baseball, just to name a couple.
Right.
What's something that, if you were on stage right now, well, I guess you are on a stage virtually right now. What can you tell business owners that are, potentially freaking out right now if, they're going to be able to make payroll or because, us business leaders, it's not just about us. There's a lot of people that depend on us. What are some suggestions that you could give to help us out during crisis right now?
First thing you have to do is look at what you can control. There's what you want it to be, and there's what it is. So if your house is worth $500,000, just saying, and the market crashes, and now your house is worth $100,000, because you didn't sell it doesn't mean the value didn't drop. So a lot of people, scenarios have changed, but because they haven't said, okay, my house is worth, no, your house is worth $100,000, brother. It dropped $400. Because you didn't sell it doesn't make it worth $500,000. It might even come back. But for right now, today, we have to go with what is. Not saying that you need to bail or cut bait, but what is right now? Can you sustain cash flow? Can you sustain salaries? Can you sustain operation? Can you sustain your insurances? These are just fundamental facts. Go with what is first. So once you get the what is out of the way, then, okay, what can I do to make these work? Now, the commitment to your staff is huge. You can't go under. If you go under trying to support your staff for 2 weeks, then you didn't do your staff a favor.
Correct.
Your staff needs you to be the leader and get them through this. I'm saying sometimes you gotta leave people where they are, get them through and come back. So I went through the prison experience, I got out, now I go back. So my lessons are so much more valuable having gotten out than if I did just stay. Imagine if I just stayed in prison. Say, fellas, I'm not going home. I know I'm just gonna stay here with you. They're like,
imagine the negative impact on the world if that the world would have never knew who you were if you would have been locked in prison for the rest of your life.
Right. If I'd have just said, I'm staying because it's scary out there. I'm scared. I don't know what's out there. Don't know what's coming. Don't know what's happening. I ain't got no guide, no post, no nothing. I've been locked down. So you're in a scenario as an entrepreneur and a CEO that is scary. And accept these are the things that are. These are my fears. And put your fears, like I said to Melissa, put your emotions on the table and let's move to the secondary thing. If your emotions are attached to the business and to the decisions, then get somebody else in the room. Don't be scared to ask for help and support. You can't make emotional decisions in business. Fact. You say, I can go Cameron Harold, I can go Roland, I can go Michael Burnop, I can go Keith Cunningham. I've listened to all of them. You can't use emotions in making business decisions. So ask yourself, is this an emotional decision or is this a business decision? And then, am I moving out of fear, out of panic, or is this just what I need to be doing business-wise? You're brilliant. Don't forget that you're brilliant. I'm saying, don't forget your brilliance. Don't forget the hard work and dedication, the hours of just going through to get to this point. The fact that you're here means you have the skill set to get through.
God built us for greatness. And Jay Abraham, he goes into, this totally breaks it down into 4 simple steps of greatness. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but we have Jay coming on April the 21st, and I'll let Jay go into the 4 steps of greatness there. But anyway, we're all built for greatness. And I think we just have to realize that within ourselves, that we do have that creative, brilliant genius that lives within us, that we have to untap. And I agree with you on where we all have to be careful right now is making a knee-jerk emotional reaction. And that even came from Roland's playbook. One thing that came from Roland's playbook was to rather than make a knee-jerk reaction, hey, let's sleep on this thing overnight, and then the next day, let's make a logical reaction. But I apologize. That was awesome what you said there.
Yeah. Question. I sent you a video in the chat box. Can you play it?
Let me see here. Tracy's a little better at working.
Oh, I'll send it to Tracy then.
Can you see it in the chat box, Tracy?
I sent it to you. Oh, I sent it to Tracy. Send Tracy's chat box.
Yeah, let me see if I can figure this out. Let me see if I can be the cool kid in the classroom right now.
As one of our friends likes to say, they were never the smartest kid in the classroom. They just sat next to him.
Yes, I didn't even sit next to him. I was in special needs class. I was definitely in special needs. But right now, I appreciate you coming on, and people have an opportunity to just chime in and hear positivity, hear struggle. I have struggles too.
Yes,
life's not perfect for me. I'm sitting here. I have like one of my best friends right now is in the hospital sick with this disease. So it's real for me. But I can't stop doing what I'm doing. That doesn't help him. He needs to call me later today to hear that I'm doing work. Hey, I'm being Andre. He doesn't need me to be like Mother Teresa crying and praying by the steps. He needs me to be Andre, because that's going to give him the energy to get back. So I sent him videos of me being me. No, yo, bro, I feel bad for you. I talked to his wife, and what can I do? But for him, it's, dude, we need you to get up.
Empathy, not sympathy.
Go hard. He's a Marine. I can't do empathy. He can't do sympathy for him. He's a former Marine.
Hey, while Tracy's getting that logged up, I have one question, and it was about there's with the not the lockdown, not the quarantine, but just the stay-in-place order that we have. There are potentially you work with Joe Polish on addiction, and there's probably more of that right now going on than ever, where parents are locked in the house, and even in Tracy and I's house, emotions can get worked up higher than ever. But there's potentially a lot more abuse going on, a lot more drinking, a lot more addiction, because people aren't at work right now. How can people reach out during those times if they're experiencing that?
Well, I'm available. If you got some of your folks, if Roland has folks, if Joe has folks, if anybody has folks, they see someone to talk to about addiction, whether it's a relative or somebody themselves, I'm here. I can give you a bunch of strategies and suggestions, but the best thing I can tell you is just call me direct, or set up. We can do a Zoom. We want to go face to face, and let me help you.
Love it.
All right, I think I've got it. Can you see my screen?
I can see it.
All right.
And as I'm doing chest compression on this man, every time I go down, blood is squirting out because he had a hole in his neck.
First, we turn to the bloody violence that broke out Sunday night at a maximum security prison in South Carolina, leaving 7 prisoners dead, 17 others seriously injured. The deadliest prison riot in the United States.
7 people killed, over 30 wounded, over 30 guys wounded. So now here we are. We got rivals in the same building. So we got guys locked in this room, guys locked in this room, guys in the ER room. Not even 30 seconds later, they're telling us, hey, pull this guy off. We can do for him. He's gone. Give me somebody else who need to go. So we take the body, put it in the hallway, in the body bag, and get somebody else who needs to go. Man, you see guys kicking the body bag, spitting on the body bag, things and such. And I'm sitting here like, man, wow, where am I?
So after the Lee riots, which took place on this yard, we lost lives, and we never want to lose lives of anybody. We were looking for something different. When I took over, Governor Haley sat me down. I was her chief of staff, and she said, Brian, most of these folks get out. We need to make sure that they're better than when they came in. Nina Staley, who's my deputy director of programs and services, she was at a national conference, and she heard Andre speak, and she approached him afterwards. And it kind of started from there. And when I met Andre, I said, you know, I believe in these men. I believe that they can change. I believe if we give them hope, if we give them a future, that they can change the prison culture.
The Academy of Hope is a one-of-a-kind program. No place on the planet does it exist, because no place on the planet did they think we could exist. But now that we're here, we're going to take this movement, we're going to put it embedded, we're going to embed it in people's heart and let them know our biggest gift to the prison system is twofold. We show inmates the possibility of holding on to their dream. And we teach the staff the reality of their wrongness by thinking we can't ever become something great. I need thee. Academy of Hope wants both sides to sit at the table and say, how can we make this better? The solution's with us. There's nobody out in society, there's no PhD, there's no doctor, there's no police officer. This is the corrections program. COs and inmates, we can fix this. Now, my Savior. Nobody understands prison like we do. They think they know. They read a book or saw a movie. Until you've been back here behind this wall for 24 hours, 7 days, you don't get this. It's a whole nother world. God, I need you. But I need you to meet me outside. So Drake calls me one day and he says, listen, we're gonna do this thing in South Carolina prison system. So I was like, what is it? He's like, the same thing I do everywhere. We're gonna fix South Carolina's prison systems and stop the violence. I'm from South Carolina. So I was like, okay, tell me what we're gonna do. He said, so what we're gonna do is, we're gonna take the most violent offenders in South Carolina. We're gonna take gang leaders. We're gonna take top influencers, and we're gonna put them all in one block. We're gonna get a dorm to ourselves with no police, and we're gonna go in and we're gonna change the whole situation. I was like, all right, cool. So I was like, fun, let's do it. It took the most, what South Carolina deemed as the most dangerous individuals in the prison system and put them in one space. And right after that, here we are, Academy of Hope. And in that space, what the world said was the most dangerous and unruly individuals, I've saw some of the best brotherhood, family, and love and compassion and caring and intellectual individuals in the world. So what he said might have sounded crazy to the rest of the world, like, okay, you want to go into an environment that's already hostile and take the most hostile of the hostile and us just jump in there with no police chaperones or anything. But he's like a mad scientist, it works
out. So coming in here, what happened was they took out the violence. And what I mean by they took out the violence, there was no knives. So I never been on the yard where you didn't have a knife. I never been on the yard where you come outside with your shower shoes on, not having your boots, because you never know what can happen at any minute. So coming here, they took out the violence, but they replaced it with books. They replaced it with education. So instead of saying that, oh, we just gonna take these knives from me, we're gonna replace it with a book. My environment is what I'm thinking now. I'm around positive people.
Culture. A lot of people don't know culture from a root word that means care. In order for you to create a culture, you have to care about individuals. Caring starts from making a safe environment for people to be in. Once people feel safe, they become a part of the culture. Why this is important is because the environment changes a person before the person changes the environment. It's a quote that Inky Johnson says all the time, and I can see that in effect when I move into spaces. We change the culture first, then that person feels safe, and then naturally that environment makes people start to react and rise to the highest.
If you don't tap into their value, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because like I said, you'd be surprised, even though you may be a corrections officer, the warden, or even the directors, you can learn how things can get solved by the people you have inside.
You're not winning just because you have a little something in your cell. You're winning when you change the narrative of how you want to live as a man in this place right here, regardless of how much time you have. You never lose your dignity. You're never supposed to lose your dignity in a situation like this. So he challenges us not to lose our dignity. He challenges us to be men. He challenges us to stand up. You know, this program is bigger than us. It's other people that we want to experience this, because this is not happening. This is not.
You just want to put the link in the box and they can watch it later?
Yeah, I will. Yep, I'll do that now.
That is amazing. I love that.
This is awesome. Yeah, I'm going to share it.
Hey, Andre, one thing that this video made me think of, my grandmaster in martial arts, Sijo Matakabir, he's also going into prisons, and that's he's on a similar mission that you are on. And this man, over 60 years in martial arts, he just speaks from wisdom. So it may be a great connection for you and him to connect, that y'all can really spread the word together. You probably have some tools and like Joe's book that I've seen there that can really help him help others that are in the prison system as well.
I mean, anybody on the call, anybody that wants to come in and see us, we'd love to have you. What happens is the information, that's the books from Cameron Herold, from John Rowland, from Sean Stevenson, from Keith Cunningham, from Joe Polish. We have all the books, Mike Burnup. We get all the books and we give them the books. And the books create a whole new scenario, but they didn't know existed. These are worlds that they didn't know existed. And the program itself, Academy of Hope, it started because people died. 7 men died. And that's what gave birth to Academy of Hope. If those 7 men did not die on that day, this program never exists. So out of tragedy comes a new thing. The tragedy that we're in now and the crisis that we're in now is going to birth something.
Yep.
It's going to. It's going to mandate that there's a change and there's a new way of doing business. So I sit in the program because of tragedy. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I wished on anybody. But when it happened, I was the response to it. Some people on this call are going to be the response to Corona, going to be the response to businesses failing or closing, going to be the response to families in crisis. And that's just how this works.
Well, hey, we truly appreciate you being on today. One phrase has popped into my mind, and it came from Steve Jobs, and it's making the ding in the universe. And I think that's one thing that you have definitely done. Amazing story, amazing testimony for humans. And hey, anything that we can do, Tracy and I can do to help you out in any way. Again, I think you'll really, Sijo Matakabir, he's 12-time world champion. He beat Billy Blanks 2 times as well, and has martial arts gyms across America as well. So I think that would maybe help you even more get your word out through other disciples. So
right.
But hey, anything that we can do to help you out, anything you want to add, Tracy?
I just want to say, thank you for everything you're doing to help others. I'm honored to know you, and my heart, just for every life that you're touching, to give them a different direction so that they don't repeat their history. Just shows you as a human and what your calling is and what your passion for. And, sometimes we go through things in life, as you did as a child, and we don't understand them at the time. And when you step out and you look back and said, that's why I went through that. You went through some very trying times in your life. And if you didn't take that journey and you didn't take that route, you wouldn't be sitting where you're sitting now and doing the things that you are for your community and for everyone that needs you. So, my heart goes out to you, and, just sincerely, I think you're awesome.
And well, the way this works, Roland Frazier pours into me. I pour into other people. Joe Polish pours into me. Michael Burnoff definitely is one of my guys, pours into me. And that's how this works. So you pour into somebody and they pour into somebody else. Who would have thought Roland Frazier would be one of my mentors or one of my friends? Who would have thought Joe Polish would be my brother, or Michael Burnoff would be like my big brother? So, and it goes back to, we have nothing in common technically, other than we're good people. And when you put good people together, things happen.
Yep.
I'm saying Roland is Roland, great guy. We're not the same person, but we have the same spirit.
Yes.
Same thing with Joe, the same thing with Mike. It's not about you having to be or look like the person. Do you have the same spirit of wanting to be helpful to the world? And that's what we all connect at. When you try to figure out, why do all these guys connect? Why do all these people connect? The spirit of wanting to be helpful is what attracts us to each other.
Love it. Well, thank you for pouring back into us as others
My
have
pleasure.
poured into you. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I'll share this. We'll turn this into a podcast, and I'll share it with you as well.
Okay, thank you.